Greetings, pipeliners, and welcome to today's basic writing lesson. In today's lesson, we are going to talk about the wonderful world of passive voice. This is a pretty common writing device that can actually make a lot of problems, create a lot of problems in your legal documents. Um, there are certainly times when some writing calls for passive voice, but these moments are generally the exception, not the rule. So throughout Pipeline Part 2, we actually encourage you not to use the passive voice. It's more of a sophisticated style of legal drafting, and we're just going to focus on the active voice right now. Before we get started, if you have any questions after today's PowerPoint presentation, I refer you to pages 69 to 73 in Just Writing, as that will give you some information, more explanations, and some more idea about the passive voice. Before we go on, I'd like to discuss just some basic grammar building blocks. When we're talking about passive voice, we're going to be referring to the subject of the sentence, the verb of the sentence, and the object of the sentence. The subject of the sentence is the person, the place, or the thing that is doing something in the sentence. It's the main subject of the sentence, shall we say. The verb is the action part of the sentence. This is what the subject is doing. And then finally, the object. This is the entity or the thing that the subject acts upon. So when you combine all of those together in that order, you get an active sentence. So a basic sentence example. Cheryl loves Iraq. In this sentence, Cheryl is our subject. The verb or the action is loves. And what is the subject of her affection but the IRAC, the issue, rule, application, conclusion, philosophy for legal writing. Basic sentence, and this is in active voice. So to explore the passive voice a little further, we're first going to talk about an active voice or an active sentence. In an active sentence, the subject is doing the action. So in the example from before, Cheryl loves Iraq. Cheryl is the subject, and she is doing the action. The action is loving Iraq. Now, if we were going to switch this over and convert this to the passive voice, the object of the action gets promoted to the subject position. Well, what does this mean, or what does this look like? Well, in the passive voice example, Iraq is loved by Cheryl. Now, you might say, well, this sentence means pretty much the same thing. And it's true, the significance is more or less the same. But really, it's less clear. It's not quite as concrete or direct or concise, and therefore not really preferred for persuasive legal writing. But if you look, you kind of break the sentence down, you can see how the object, Iraq being the object of Cheryl's affection, is being pushed back into the subject section. Iraq is loved by Cheryl, again, means more or less that Cheryl loves Iraq. It's just a little more confusing and a little more complicated than it needs to be. So we'll take a look at another example. In the active voice, the law student carries the heavy books. And if we were going to switch that over to the passive voice, you can see how the object, heavy books, is pushed back to the subject position. The heavy books are carried by the law student. Again, they mean essentially the same thing, but you can even look, the first sentence is shorter than the second one. It's more concise, more direct. And when you're really thinking about page numbers and word count, any single word can really make a big difference in your writing. We are training you all to be legal wordsmiths. There are blacksmiths and there are locksmiths, and you are all becoming a wordsmith. So be very careful about the words you're choosing and the format you're choosing. And passive voice is one of those areas where sometimes you can modify your language to make it more clear. Yet another example. The song was sung and the competition was won by the chorus. If we were to change that over to the active voice, the chorus sang the song and won the competition. So there are a lot of pretty frequently asked passive voice questions that we're going to address right now. The first one, does the use of passive voice constitute a grammatical error? Is it grammatically incorrect to use passive voice? And the truth is no. Passive voice is not a grammatical error. It's more just a stylistic choice. It's more a choice that that can confuse your writing and make it ultimately less persuasive. So right now we're encouraging folks to just use the active voice. Does the passive voice always avoid the first person? No, also not true. In the example, I was hit by the dodgeball. Again, this is passive voice, but you've got the sentence written in the first person point of view. I. Should I ever use the passive voice? Not in Pipeline Part 2. You know, like we said, passive voice, while grammatically correct, can weaken your arguments. So what we want to do right now is to get you comfortable with making a persuasive argument or doing a solid legal analysis with the IRAC method, but not using passive voice. Finally, can I rely on Grammar Checker to catch my passive voice? And the answer to that is no as well. The word by is often an indicator of passive voice, so if you want to control find for by, sometimes that will lead you to the passive voice. But I refer you to rule number 1, because it's grammatically correct, not much you can do other than just go through and scan very closely. Close case read. So what we're so this ends our passive voice flipped classroom PowerPoint presentation. In class, we're going to have some opportunities to try out these passive voice exercises and to modify some sentences and answer any other questions that you might have about this subject. Feel free to email me some questions. Again, I refer you to the book, The Pages in Just Writing, if you have any other questions, and we will definitely be going over this in class. Thanks very much for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.